welcome to another episode of the Geek Out Room podcast. Don't forget you can listen to our episodes over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You also watch episodes on our YouTube channel, Sauceless Entertainment. With that being said, today we're talking about a discourse that feels so 1900s, and that is, in the big year of 2025, we're talking about a correlation between video games and video game violence to mass shootings and just overall violence in general in America, in the United States of America. And it's a tired thing because we've done research, right? There's been studies done even by the Secret Service of the United States of America. They've done this. There's many law enforcement organizations and scientists who've done and mathematicians who've done so much science behind mass shootings and overall gun violence and violence in general in America to video games. And there's no strong correlation between the two. All right. And it's so interesting we're still having this discussion in 2025 because it's just such a tired and dumb. There are many other conversations that need to be had when it comes to gun violence and mass shootings and all kinds of other things that happen in America. And video game needs to exit that. Video games should not be a part of that discussion. Anime should not be a part of that discussion. Those two things, what are we doing? It's 2025. And we're having hearings in Washington, D.C. about video games causing people to go out there and mass murder hundreds of thousands of people. And that's just not the case. Anyone with Google or Yahoo search engine or Bing, I don't even know if Bing's still a thing, anyone with a search engine can easily look it up and go, oh, there's zero correlation and move on with their day. There's no strong science or math behind this. Okay? I grew up in a generation that played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. All right? Do you think that is there a correlation between young people who played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and actual Grand Theft Auto in real life? Or do you think a bunch of people played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and there's a correlation between young people playing that and then joining a gang because they played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas? Let's be for real. Let's be really for real for a second. All right? People played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Okay? Back when the Call of Duty franchise was unique and fresh. And they had a mission called No Russian. All right, for people who are not familiar with it, a lot of people are, but for the people who aren't, there's a mission called No Russian. And on that mission, you went and committed a mass shooting at an airport. All right? I think Modern Warfare 2 came out like 2007, 2008, I think. So was going on. And there's no correlation. There's no way. There's no correlation between young teens or adults playing that mission, and then immediately there's a huge uptick, like a 100 to 200% uptick in airport mass shootings. All right, let's stop it. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. There are other things you can correlate, like when there was an assault rifle ban, and then mass shootings dropped tremendously. And then the ban expired and wasn't reintroduced, and then mass shootings went up 200 and something percent. Like, that's a correlation we can study. We can look at that. But to go what makes people go shoot up schools? Gears of War 3. Like, let's be for real. Let's be for real. So going back to it being the big 2025, we need to stop. I do not want to see this discourse happen again. If it's 2030 and I'm making another podcast episode about this exact topic, the society's probably already ruined, and now it's just an endless meme cycle because there's no way we're still having this discourse or this conversation in 2025. All right, do you know how big the video game market is in Asia? And if this correlation was true, if there was really a cause and effect here, there really was a connection between video game violence and real life violence, translating to real life violence, then I feel like Asia's gun violence or gun related deaths would be tremendously high every year. Hell, it would definitely, especially on some of the most densely populated cities or countries in the world belong to Asia. So you would really see a huge uptick in gun violence or gun-related violence and deaths. And you don't. All right? So this whole thing about video games and the violence in America needs to stop. It's 2025. Let's move on. This is a topic that I can cover in the Geek Out Room podcast because it's about nerd shit crossing over to things we need to have real discussions about. Real discussions about. They introduced this thing before I was born. We had this conversation come up again in like 2007 when I was a kid. We had it again while I was in college, and now we're having it again as in my 30s. Like, what are we doing? What are we actually doing here? Let's stop it. Let's end this, okay? Because honestly, if anything, games have gotten a lot more tame in what they do in story modes now than it was before. That video games cause all these violence in real world. Forget that video game is entertainment, just like movies, just like cartoons, just like sporting events, entertainment. All of it's entertainment, right? Video game campaigns are scripted. Yes, there are just now like Fortnite and other things where there's no real campaign or story mode. It's just shoot 'em up games, construction games, Minecraft, construction games, stuff like that. But there are games like Halo, Gears of War, Call of Duty, especially earlier Call of Duty. Games like this where there is a campaign, where there's a story being told, or even Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. There's stories being told, and you fall in love with these characters. You feel connected to these characters, just like you would watching a movie or TV series. And these games, at least the really good ones, show the dynamic. They show a world. They introduce characters where things are not good. They don't glorify violence. They show, hey, if you commit this violent act here, this is the cause of that violence. All right. It shows characters going through grief. They show characters that are going to war and what war can do to a human being, what it can do to a city, a civilization, to democracy, to all these different things. There's so many different lessons, or there's so many different ways of life they're trying to introduce to people through any story. These video games are deeper than that. Anyone who's played a video game, especially one with campaigns or campaign-heavy video game, knows this. Because before the Call of Duty multiplayer, there's a campaign that people love to play with characters that go through different trials and tribulations, characters that go through grief, that go through happiness, that go through rage. And that's what the most memorable characters are. All right? The heroes that a lot of people idolize or a lot of people quote, they go through different trials and tribulations. They go through different emotions. They fight. They're three-dimensional characters that in terms of the depth of these characters and the range of emotions they feel. All right? Like this a notion that is just violence, pure violence, all these games. And people take the shoot 'em up parts of these games and then go out there and do the real thing is so nonsensical. It's actually it's just nonsensical to me. Back in the day, there was no trigger warning. Okay? You just got either triggered or you didn't. All right? There was no thought behind the care of people who play the games. Hell, what Resident Evil was it? It was like Resident Evil 4 or 5, whichever one where you're in Africa playing a white man mass murdering a bunch of Africans who are zombies. All right? But that did not lead to people being like, you know what? All Africans are zombies. I'm going to go to Liberia and go shoot up a bunch of people. Like, let's be, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What is this? It's 2025. Why are we still having this conversation? Like, what the fuck? That's so crazy. That's so crazy to me. We're still having this conversation, man. Some conversations don't end. It's also because, right, at the end of the day, it's a distraction. At the end of the day, they're like, they need some kind of enemy because it can't be guns. Because if it's guns, we're going to eventually have another ban on these things. We don't want that. So there needs to be an enemy that's causing this violence, that's causing people to do this. Oh, I know. Let's make it video games for the 1000th time. And what's the point of science, of data, of mathematics, if when we do these studies, at one point we entertain this idea, it's like, oh, maybe you're right, because there are some really violent video games out there, right? So let's do the studies. Let's pay all these people to pause their important things and do studies on this. And the studies come back and they say, you're fucking wrong. You're fucking, there's no correlation between these video games and these tragedies. You need to go look somewhere else. And then to ignore that every 5 years and come back to the Senate floor and talk about this again and again is asinine. It's annoying, and there's other real conversations that need to be had on that floor for this particular topic. But video games needs to be removed from this conversation already. All right? Are we clear? Can we agree? Am I talking out of my ass? Maybe I am. Maybe I am. But listen, I'm telling you right now, this is a deadbeat horse, and we just gotta move on. So that's my think piece. This is a shorter podcast episode because really I just saw it happening. Like it popped up on my feed again, and I'm like, there's no way we're having this discourse on this, like in the Senate. You know what I mean? Like there's some real dialogue that needs to happen, and it cannot be this again. We've done this every phase of my life so far in my existence in this world. There's no way we're having this discussion again. I could not stand it. So I was like, I have a platform, let me use it. And it's the Geek Out Room podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know your thoughts down below, because there's zero chance this is going to be the last time we talk about someone introducing to the Senate that video games are causing people to go out there and murder hundreds of people. So, here we go.